Biggest thing to me with this run game, Seth, is that, obviously it's not good, but also I think it's part of the reason why they played in so many close games. Like, it's not a run game. You got to be able to put teams away with your run game.
Yeah, when can you run the ball when you need to run the ball?
Yeah.
Man, I wish I hadn't watched the Bills game right before this because now everything's going back to that. But Pacheco being able to just run the ball out on the Bills finally.
Yes.
At the end there. Can you finish a game?
Yep.
That's a big deal. And yeah, they're going to perpetually still allow teams back into it if you can't hold on to the ball. Not to mention, look, in the Ravens game, man, the Ravens don't have an awesome run defense. I think it's a little bit overblown in terms of it being a weakness of theirs because they're a bend but don't break defense. The Ravens are. They do it so well that it doesn't look bend but don't break. But they're going to concede a little bit of the rushing yardage. But I think in that game, if on defense the Texans were going to blitz, then you can't let the offense get that many looks at it. If you're just, after a while, they start to get a beat on exactly what you're doing, and they have a plan for it, as they did. If you could sustain some drives, even if it's not electric or anything, but just sustain some drives and keep the defense off the field, you still have a little bit of that ambush effect on the offense, and they couldn't do it, obviously. 38 yards rushing.
Yeah, it was bad, and that's the thing. Like, you're right back to square one where you were at the beginning of the year, which is you just can't run the football. To me, the way they ran the ball at times down the stretch, running it poorly, it makes those games like where Devin Singletary was getting 120 yards or 150 yards more of an aberration than any sort of indication. Like, oh yeah, they were starting to get it as the year went on. That sort of thing. Like even bad teams are able to run the football at times during the season. Like if you were tasked with improving this thing, Seth, improving this run game, heading into the offseason, where would your focus be, knowing that the Texans are fairly committed to this group on the offensive line?
Yeah,
like, this is a tough group to eject from because of the money that's been given to the veteran guys and the draft capital that's been invested in the younger guys. And you've got a running back room that you could just hit a red button and explode and start over if you wanted to.
I think that there are a couple things. One, Slowick talked about, look, they've got an offensive line coach who'd never really been in this scheme before. And it was a process getting him up to speed, Chris Strausser. And that begs the question, all right, well, how come he was your offensive line coach if it was going to take a while to get up to speed? Sometimes it's just hard to hire the perfect guy out there that's steeped in exactly what you do and everything isn't always available. Or if he is, you don't feel like he's a good offensive line coach. Chris Strausser has a really good reputation. He's done good work in the past, but there was an onboarding process with him. So hopefully that should get better. These offensive linemen themselves having a year in the system. Remember, it took Gary Kubiak a few years to really get the run game going. But then beyond that, look, I don't believe in paying big-time money to big-time free agent running backs because it almost never works out. It's usually dumb money. But this is where Derrick Henry, man, the dude runs outside zone. He's awesome at it. He's the second leading rusher in the NFL this year behind a really bad offensive line. I don't think he's going to get huge money in free agency because he's an aging running back, even though he's been pretty damn durable. I would take a flyer on him. I would be okay with that. You can't. Not if the money is the kind of thing where, oh, yeah, this guy's your linchpin for the next 4 or 5 years. But if it's a healthy dose of a couple years where you can get a guy to come in and give you a certain ability to just churn yardage, if you can get the offensive line right, I'd be cool with Derrick Henry.
Would you, if the money were in the same neighborhood, would you rather have Derrick Henry or Saquon Barkley?
If the money were in the same neighborhood, I think I'd rather have Derrick Henry.
Really?
Yeah. Let me look at did Saquon stay healthy this entire season?
I think he did. Yeah. The Giants were so off the grid this year.
The thing I don't like about Saquon in general is that it's again, if we're talking about hey, can you guarantee me that you're going to get 3 yards? He's not that guy. Now his ability as a pass catcher goes a long way too.
That's why I ask. That's the differentiator for me.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess part of it is I'm kind of burned on them not using Singletary more as a pass catcher this year.
Yeah.
That I felt like Singletary for the first 2/3 of the season just was A, not being used enough as a runner, and then B, really wasn't being used as much as he could have as a receiver.
Saquon played 14 games this year.
Yeah, it's been a few years since he missed a big chunk of time. It was that 2 years ago he just wasn't quite himself, despite he put up 1,300 yards, but he had like that stretch where he was banged up and injured in the middle of the season and towards the end where the Giants just weren't any good.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the weird stories this last offseason was like people were just ignoring the fact that the Giants kind of sucked in the second half of last year.
Yeah.
And that like somehow because they had a good overall record, they were going to be an awesome team this year, different.
Well, and when they had a good record last year, they did make the playoffs. They finished 9-7-1, I want to say.
Yeah.
Something like that. But even when they were getting out to a good start, it was a lot of fluky things,
Flukish stuff,
they had a late I remember a game against the Titans, they had a late comeback and they went for 2 and they got it and that kind of stuff.
It was, what it was having that surprise performance in the playoffs, I think, that skewed people.
Yeah.
They thought like, oh wow, look, they're in the playoffs and oh wow, okay.
And they won a game. Yeah, they beat
Vikings.
Kirk Cousins, which was just as fluky of a team. 2 teams that won a bunch of close games going against each other.
I know for 100% certain this will be my least popular take about wanting Derrick Henry over Saquon Barkley, but I don't give a damn. Give me a full-grown man, damn it. This team needs more full-grown men, like big pipe-carrying ass kickers that you would want. That's just like that's my. You know what? For anybody they sign on offense anymore right now, until this team shows physicality, I want guys, the classic test of like, who do you want with you in a bar fight?
Yeah.
I want Derrick Henry. I want Nico Collins. I want CJ because I feel like he might actually be able to, negotiate a peace beforehand, just in case nobody actually wants to fight.
Right.
But then, those are like I need guys like that. I don't need Saquon Barkley. I need Derrick Henry, who's going to come and pull out his brass knuckles and beat you down. Okay.
I would like that. I think if I had to guess, Seth, if I had to bet, this team will have a running back on the roster next year that has been a Pro Bowl caliber running back, like not on a rookie contract anymore. Like a Saquon or a Derrick Henry or a Josh Jacobs, like guys in. I'm not saying it'll be Josh Jacobs, but like guys of that ilk, guys that they will. Seth, here's my thing. They will have one of the running backs that was on that silly Zoom call that they all did last year, complaining about how they're not getting paid enough and not really coming up with any solutions for it. That Austin Eckler organized. They're like, let's all get together on a Zoom call and bitch about our pay with each other.
Basically, you guys should all get on a Zoom call and bitch about how your parents had you play running back. Okay,
exactly. You
should be better off being a safety.
Yes.
Yeah, now if you're 5'8" or something, then I get it.
Yeah.
Even then, though. Yeah, listen, push away from the buffet and be a cornerback, will you?
Yep.
All right? I've had enough. It's not our fault that you chose to be a running back.
Exactly.
Ugh.
I tweeted yesterday.
I'm sorry you're only making $11 million a year.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. I just thought, how can I sleep at night? Oh.
They're doing okay. I tweeted yesterday, I retweeted a graphic about Saquon. There was a graphic from PFF for Saquon that had what could Saquon Barkley's next team be, and the Texans were one of like 4 teams that were listed, and I just retweeted, said I'd do it, and with no context, like no, I'd do it for $7 million, but I just put I'd do it just to see how people would react.
Yeah,
I think it was split right down the middle. I think there's a lot of people out there. There's a lot of people out there that I think got tired of watching as good as Devin Singletary. I think we got the best version of Devin Singletary behind that offensive line that you could possibly get. So what I'm about to say is not shade at Devin Singletary, but I think people got tired of watching Dameon Pierce kind of struggle his way through this offense and Devin Singletary be your bell cow.
Man, the whole thing about Saquon Barkley with me is he is what everybody thought Jadeveon Clowney was, which is like, all right, man, he's some big flashy plays in college, but not really in the NFL. Whereas with Jadeveon, I always felt like, man, he doesn't have the reputation in the NFL that he should. He's actually plays his ass off when he's out there, and he's chasing dudes down 30 yards downfield. This perception is not fair. Whereas with Saquon Barkley, it's like the scouting report on him in college is borne out in the NFL where, he has some huge plays, but I also can't trust him always to just churn out yardage when I need him to churn out yardage. But there's a bling appeal to him, and I'm not fooled by the bling. I need barroom brawlers. I need somebody who will have my back when I talk smack, as I am wont to do. Okay?
I need someone to fight my fights for me.
So go take care of these Ravens fans that are still coming after me. Damn
Barroom brawlers, that's the theme. That's the theme. Oh, speaking of Clowney, text message. Dalton Schultz, this is true. Dalton Schultz got his ass kicked by Clowney on a few reps. Did you guys see those?
Yes.
Hey,
it wasn't a good audition for Schultz trying to get. Man, look. There's a handful of tight ends in the NFL who are good blockers. Dalton Schultz is not one of them. I saw people saying he doesn't want to block, and they cited those plays as examples. I was like, I'm pretty sure he wanted to block Jadeveon. It just it wasn't happening. It's kind of like you wanting to date a supermodel. All right, it's just not. It's not happening. Okay, not you, Sean. Of course you could if you wanted.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
You're married to one.
Yeah.
But if just like any random person criticizing Schultz for not being able to block Jadeveon Clowney, that's it. Sometimes the bear eats you.
That's right. That's a good way to put it. Text message: do you have any hope for Kenyon Green? What's the Kenyon Green factor heading into the offseason here? Is he just is he found money at this point if he pans out, Seth? Are you planning on Kenyon Green? Should Kenyon Green be part of any plans for this team?
That's the question. Can you move forward just confident that Kenyon Green's going to be your guard? And I say no. I do think that when it comes to allocation of resources, you've got a lot of money and draft picks allocated to your offensive line right now. Now, like, just because you've spent bad money on something doesn't mean that you should never spend money on it again. But there are other areas of weakness on your team. So there's a certain part of this offensive line where you just got to say, all right, you know what? We got to make do with what we have because we got to spend elsewhere also and get the best out of what we can with a couple of good offensive tackles. I wish to hell that that Laramie would stay on sides because it's a drive killer. You might as well be letting up sacks with each one of those false starts. Especially, you know why that is, Sean? Especially when it's like a false start on 3rd and 5. You go from 3rd and 5 to 3rd and 10. Like, oh my God. Okay, I don't want to get off on a rant. You've got a lot of money spent on your tackles. You've got a good, hefty contract on a right guard who's good enough. That's 3 good offensive linemen. You can make do with 2 passable offensive linemen. So you were playing with your 4th option at center for the better part of this season. If it's Juice Scruggs or somebody else, I think you're better off next year. Although I think like Dieter played better than you're better off with a better center.
Yeah.
And then you need a left guard, but I don't want to. I'm not going to go out and sign a marquee left guard. I got to get somebody that's just gonna be passable at left guard. Maybe it's a journeyman veteran that comes in and start a journeyman that at least like will get beat, but not get beat as fast as Juice Scruggs was this season. Patterson, I think, is a potential guy, and then there's Kenyon Green. So I'd say journeyman veteran, Patterson, Kenyon Green, one of those guys wins.
They were stumping for a big left guard signing on the drive yesterday.
Yeah, I know. I was on with them.
Yeah. They ran that by you?
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
I know, Clint made a really good point, which is like, look, your captain – one of the captains of your team and your best offensive lineman is not a guy that's particularly gritty in the run game.
Yep.
So, like, Laramie Tunsil's not going to be that guy that establishes it. It's got to be somebody else. Yeah, maybe if they got some ass-kicking, scary, had to go to reform school type of left guard,